up, guys? Welcome back to the Forgotten Jesus podcast. Listen, you may be listening to this right now, but you guys have been asking for YouTube, so you can actually watch this right now on YouTube. So if you're listening, we're glad you're here. But if you want to see behind the scenes and us actually talk about this, be sure to check out YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. I feel like a YouTuber now. Hit that bell notification so you can stay up to date.
Only YouTube or other platforms like Vimeo and...
Yeah, YouTube. So, Pastor, we are season 3.
Okay.
25 episodes in.
Right.
We are finally getting to the New Testament. We're finally getting to Matthew.
Yeah. Almost.
Oh,
almost. Yeah, almost.
I was
We're
just
almost
sure
there.
today I was going to learn something about Scripture.
We're almost there. I thought you've learned something about Scripture.
I've learned a whole lot.
Yeah.
I know a lot about Hellenism and men running naked in the games.
Here we go again. Here we go. I thought we put that to bed with season 2.
Okay. Anyways, moving on.
gosh.
So today we're getting into Matthew. And what did you want to call this one?
Well, I don't know what I want to call it, but I will say this. I'm going to make 2 statements that may shock everyone.
Okay.
Or
Go figure.
not shock, but cause you to think differently. Number 1, I'm going to show you how I believe Matthew was possibly written in Hebrew, or probably written in Hebrew first. And number 2, I'm going to make the case that Matthew was the first gospel written.
Okay. Well, let's get into it.
Now, first of all, why is that a bold statement? What do people normally think Matthew was written in? What language?
Greek.
Greek, I would think.
Greek, right? And then number 2, what is normally accepted as the first gospel? Do you know? What is the first gospel normally accepted by people or believed by people?
Luke. I'm just making up.
Robert? Mark.
Robert behind the scenes. Mark taking show notes.
Mark, okay. And normally people think it's Mark. Why?
Because it's longest.
It's the shortest. Shortest.
Well, that's what I meant to say.
Yeah. No, it's the short. No, you're confusing what we said. He has the longest explanations.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, that's what you meant. But he has the shortest gospel. So most people think, well, he was the shortest. He wanted to get the message out quickly, so he just wrote it. The thing about Mark, contrary to popular opinion, Mark is not the shortest. Mark is the shortest in length or the amount of encounters that he includes, but he's the most long-winded when it comes to the type of encounters or experiences of Jesus. So if you ever want to know like a full comment, it's like that friend that just keeps talking and talking. You're like 7. Yep. You're like, let's just get to the
and
point.
They never stop talking.
Yeah. Actually, that's me.
Yep.
So is this
Candy always gets to the point. That's why I always say Candy can never be a preacher. Or never be.
That's the reason.
Well, Candy does teach and preach the word, but Candy could never be a storyteller because.
Oh no, I can tell a story.
Well, but when I tell is it just me then?
I think it's just
no, but
Because when I tell a story, she's like, you go too long.
Based on
I'm like
our
ready to
current
get to
situation, I'm going to say it's you.
It may be me. Okay, moving on.
Candy would have got to this point
All right.
33 seconds.
Okay, let's
Well,
get to what we're talking about.
I do have a question
moving
though.
on. Okay,
So is this like, do people really debate this? Like which gospel was first?
Yeah, because there's certain reasons why each one's first in order.
Well, why is Matthew included first in the New Testament
Okay,
arrangement?
That's what you would think. Yeah, you would think naturally Matthew's first, but that was done years later. If you remember our episode not long ago when the councils met together and they started to decide what books are included, they actually figured out this
The
goes
order.
first, this goes second, this goes third. But I'm going to say they were probably onto something there too. The 2 reasons why I believe Matthew was first, okay, and Matthew was written in Hebrew, I think. Matthew obviously is first because I think who is the audience that is first accepting of the message of Jesus as the Messiah? Who is the first group of people that everybody is preaching to? Not only just the apostles, but Paul himself.
The Jews.
The Jews.
First to the Jews, then to the
Then
Gentiles.
to the Gentiles, exactly. In fact, if you follow the book of Acts, notice how many times Paul goes first to where? Where does he start? The Jews, where at though? Where do they meet?
Jewtown.
Synagogue.
Jewtown. Yeah, no, synagogue. They call it a synagogue.
Sorry.
We
can edit that out.
Yeah. Synagogue. Jeez. Synagogue, that's where they met. And basically, he preached there. Now, the crazy thing is he was never accepted there. He was beat up. He was punished. He was pummeled. Every time he went to the Gentiles, they tried to make him a god. They were praying to him. Let us, Zeus, come back with Barnabas,
Yeah.
But the thing was, they always went to the Jews. So the ministry began. The movement began with Jewish people, okay? Matthew is the most quoted. Matthew quotes more of the Old Testament reference-wise than any of the other guys combined. He's constantly saying, and the scriptures say, and the prophet Isaiah said, or the prophet Malachi proposed this, right? So he's constantly connecting the Old and New Testament. He's basically saying this is the messianic rabbi you've been looking for. And then the third thing, and here's the big one. One of the big questions that Jesus was always answering, or some of the big questions, and some of the debates that Jesus was having, was not necessarily over the written law, as we'll see in Matthew, not the commandments. Now, a lot of people misunderstand this. They think the Old Testament commandments are the 10 Commandments, which is part of it. But guess how many Old Testament commandments there actually are in the Mosaic law, the law of Moses? How many commandments God gave Moses? Do you know?
Candy, you were talking about this earlier. What was that number you said?
Yep.
Well,
600.
and 13?
613.
Wow, I had 13 in my mind. You did? I didn't have the 600 part.
600, I don't believe it. 613 commandments, okay?
Yeah.
So you have 613 commandments additionally to the 10, or the 10 are included in that, what the Old Testament. Now, outside of the written law, the rabbis believed, and Jesus himself would debate this with the guys, they believe Moses came down with 2 laws. Did you know this?
I did not know this.
Yeah. One written law that was written down, obviously, in the Torah, but then he came down with the oral law. The spoken law, a different law. Okay. Different, similar, but different. What I mean, the oral law was actually a commentary on the written law. Here's what I mean. When Moses comes down from the mountain and the Bible says, keep the Sabbath, then what do you ask?
What does that mean to keep the Sabbath?
Okay, what does it mean to keep the Sabbath? More specifically, okay, I cannot work on the Sabbath.
Right.
What is work? Okay, what if I have an animal that falls in a ditch and gets injured? Is that work to save him? How many steps is considered work from my home to the synagogue? Can I light a fire? If so, can I kindle a fire? Can I start a fire the day before? What if I put out the fire? These are the questions that they were asking. So that was the oral law, which explained the written law. Okay, so the Jewish people believe this is synonymous in the culture. Moses comes down from the mountain with 2 laws. Now here's the question: when Jesus was being criticized by the Pharisees, which were his biggest critics, and by the way, who were the most like him?
Yeah.
They believed in the similar things. They didn't do what they were saying, but they believed the same things.
Yeah.
What were they constantly debating Jesus over that he was breaking? Pop quiz if you're listening.
Oh, man.
The written law or the oral law?
The oral.
Oral.
Well, it just hit me. He says, you have heard, but I've written.
Yeah,
this, right?
you've heard it said this way, but I say to you.
Yeah.
Okay, watch this.
Yeah.
Jesus is actually going to give them an interpretation of the Old Testament law. And Matthew's going to show us that. Now let's go into the text. You just got me thinking about something. Go to the Sermon on the Mount. I want to show you how the sermon ends, or the sermon begins. Because a lot of people get to the Old Testament and they say, that's old. Let me get to the New Testament.
Right.
That's the Old Covenant. The Jews have replaced, or we've replaced the Jews. We've got the New Testament. In fact, the name Old Testament.
Right.
Just
Well, we gave it that name.
Yeah,
it was the only testament.
It was the only testament. In fact, the better way to think of it is the Hebrew Bible.
Right.
That was Jesus's only Bible, okay? So, but the challenge for a lot of us and those listening or watching are thinking, why would I read the old when I got the new?
Right.
You have a choice. Do you want the iPhone 8 or you want the new iPhone that just came out with the new release? The iPhone, what is it now, 15? I don't know what it is, 14?
Yeah. Well, what
do you want?
I want the new.
You just want,
new.
everybody wants the new.
But last night we watched Spider-Man at home, and we went Andrew Garfield over Tom Holland. I watched the old.
Really?
Really.
Y'all decided to go with the old.
We went with the old.
Okay, that's not the point of this
But I'm just
illustration.
saying, it made me think of that. There's value in the old. I'm trying to.
Right. No, I see what you're saying.
See
Okay,
what
you
I'm
got
saying?
me. No, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, technology's totally different.
Yeah. Which is funny in the
Not comparable to
Which is
Scripture.
funny in the Spider-Man's. Remember when they brought back all the guys
was
from
amazing.
the past?
It was
Some of my
absolutely
kids didn't even know who they were because they were
Yeah.
so old. Who are these guys? I was like, you know
Yeah.
these guys? Anyway. Okay. Let's read Matthew chapter 5, and I want to show you an amazing insight that Jesus, out of his own mouth, is going to teach us about the Old Testament law. Okay? Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. Candace, will you like to read?
Sure. Okay. Don't think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill.
Okay, let's stop there. First question is, when you're studying the scripture, you have to define the terms. There are two sections of terms that you need to know. Okay, so when I'm studying for a sermon or a Bible study, I'm coming to a text and I'm asking myself the question, what words are ambiguous? What words are not self-evident to the audience? This is how I'm trying to preach. What words are not clear to me? Okay, so Candy, what two words or two sections of words that we need to define in order to unlock the text?
The law and the prophets.
That's one. What's the other one? Andrew?
I don't have it
You
in
don't have
front
it
of
ready?
me. Sorry.
Abolish.
Abolish. Okay, let me ask you this. So do you apply this when you just read the word for yourself or only when you're preparing to teach?
That's a good question. Depends on the kind of study. Like this morning when I was reading my Bible, I don't normally do. Every now and then I'll look up a word, but normally it's more devotional.
Okay.
I'm just letting the word kind of saturate my soul and the Holy Spirit speak. And then I'll put it down and think about it, meditate. But when I'm studying for a text or studying for a lesson or doing some deep study for the podcast, I'm always asking that question.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm asking the question, what is the law and the prophets? What's the word abolish? That word, including the next sentence, which is fulfill. So there are three sections we need to understand. Abolish, fulfill, law, and the prophets. Andrew, the first question. What is the law and the prophets? When Jesus says the law and the prophets, the Torah and the Nevi'im, what is he saying?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea. You lost me somehow.
Okay. Well, remember the Tanakh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, the Ketuvim.
I went Ketuvim as soon as you said
Yeah.
and then I was thinking.
Not ketamine.
That's what I said.
Ketuvim. Ketamine something.
I have a speech
That's a horse
impediment.
tranquilizer.
I have a speech impediment. You just made fun of me on the
Ketuvim is the
podcast.
writing. Okay. The law and the prophets, Candy, is what? If you would say, just it's a summation of something.
The Old Testament.
The Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible.
Yep.
Okay. So what Jesus is saying is, do not think I've come to abolish the Old Testament, the law and the prophets, the Bible you have. In fact, I didn't come to abolish. I've come to what?
Fulfill.
To fulfill. Okay. The word abolish means to nullify or to render inoperative.
Okay.
Okay. Meaning it has no power and no bearing on my life today.
Good night. So Jesus himself said, I
Yeah.
didn't come to get rid of this.
Right, I didn't come to get rid of. Now, which is funny because there's a movement now of people that would say replacement. We don't need the Old Testament law. We don't need the Old Testament, teachings. We don't need the Old Testament commandments, and so they pick and choose. Now they will say we need to keep the 10 commandments for sure.
Right,
got to keep those.
Yeah, let's pick and choose.
But we're not going to keep one of the 10. We're going to keep 9 of the 10 because the Sabbath. God knows we're not going to keep that one. So we pick and choose really our own commandments, right? But you can't pick and choose. Now, I will say, I'm not saying, don't hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying we have to keep the law. I'm not saying we have to participate in all the laws. Some of the laws have to do with the temple. Those are actually gone. There's ceremonial laws. There's moral laws. But the point Jesus is making is, I did not come to nullify. I didn't come to render inoperative. I actually came to fulfill the law. Now, what I'm about to tell you is going to unlock, because it did for me, it's going to unlock the ministry of Jesus in a way. It's going to change the perspective you have of him. Okay, the word fulfill is actually the word that means, think of it this way, fill full, not complete as in the sense of to do away with. It actually means to, you ready for this? Interpret correctly or to fill full. Okay, now let me give you an example. The problem we have with the word fulfill is, do you remember back in the day when, and they probably still do this, Old Navy sends out these catalogs in the mail for like a sale on jeans, 30% off Old Navy sale, okay? So they'll send a back to school, why are you saying that?
I'm just laughing because they normally now it would be an email or something.
He was talking back.
I said back in the day.
Okay.
This is like Sears catalog days.
Okay.
No, it's not that old, but I do miss the Sears catalog. Anybody remember the Sears catalog when you were a
Sears
kid?
in general.
Oh, we remember
I
those.
miss Sears. Yeah. I used to love that Sears catalog, by the way.
It was good.
Let's just take
Your
the
grandmother loved him too.
What are you trying to say about his grandmother?
No, I'm just saying.
She did love him too.
Okay.
Actually, she did love him too. Okay. Old Navy. We could use Sears. But let's use Old Navy. Okay. Old Navy sends you this catalog, this little flyer in the mail. What I didn't realize years ago, like some of you didn't, is that Old Navy would send out this 30% off sale, back to school sale. And you feel the pressure, the sense of urgency.
Right.
I'm going to miss out. I got to buy a pair of jeans for the kids or myself.
Right.
But then you realize that right after that, there's the Labor Day 30% off sale. You don't want to miss that one either.
No.
And then you have the Halloween 30% off sale. And then you have the Thanksgiving 30% off sale. And then you have the Christmas. And then you realize that 30% off is a sale year round.
It's just the actual price.
It's just actual price.
This is my theory with Hobby Lobby, by the way.
Oh, gosh.
I'm convinced nothing is 50% off. That is the actual price, and they just say it's marked down.
Yeah. Because there actually is a law for that.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. There's a law that if somebody can mark it up higher and give you a bigger discount, even if the discount is more than what you would pay if it's a lesser discount, you're going to choose the greater discount because you don't want to miss the deal.
Okay, so when you say law, not like a legal law.
No, there's like a law. It's
mind.
like the Parkinson's law, which is a task. Anyway, it's like one of those laws of.
What were we talking about?
Okay, back on track. Okay, so fulfill. So the Old Navy catalog comes in 30% off. In the back of the little insert back in the day, you would have this little section where you could, and some people still do this. You can actually write the order down. You write down, I want the pair of jeans with the SKU number here, and it's this amount. And let's say you send in cash in the mail or a check, and this is old school now, but you mail it in to the company. You want to buy these pair of slim fitting jeans, okay? Slim fitting whitewash jeans, okay?
Oh.
Whitewash, let's just say.
What Candy wears.
Okay, so when the jeans come in the mail in that little plastic wrapping, okay, that little stretchy plastic, when the jeans come in the mail and you open the package up and you see the jeans, okay, what do you do with the catalog that was mailed to you originally? Do you keep it or do you crumble it up and throw it away?
I'll throw it away.
Why?
Because it has been fulfilled.
There we go. The order has been fulfilled.
Okay.
Here's the problem. Most people read the New Testament, the Old Testament, and view the New Testament that way. What do I mean? They think Jesus' words, I came to fulfill the law and the prophet, wrongly for years.
Means we no longer need it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because just like the ad that was thrown in why do I need the catalog when I have the order in hand? I'm not going to look at the jeans. I'm going to wear the jeans. We got Jesus. We don't need the Old Testament. That's a misunderstanding of the word. Okay. Amen. The word, here's a better way to think of it. Two ways. Remember those, actually there's a new thing out called Picasso Pink Picasso. Have y'all heard of this?
I have not.
Oh,
heard of it.
I know what you're talking
Ladies, have you heard of this? If you have not heard of this, this is actually a great thing.
Should I have heard about this?
Yes, for Jenny, your wife.
Okay.
If you have not heard of it, if you're listening,
Well,
you haven't
Jenny
heard of
probably
this.
doesn't have time right now.
Robert, have you heard of Pink Picasso? You can thank me. This will be one of the best gifts you buy for your wife.
This episode, by the way, sponsored by
Pink Picasso. No, this is not sponsored by
No.
Pink. Okay, my mom turned me on to this. She told me about. Basically, Pink Picasso is this paint by numbers for adults.
Yeah, Jenny would love that.
Listen, but watch this.
In all her spare time.
In all her spare time with her kid. No,
No, I totally want to do this.
Listen,
by the way.
I'm just telling you, listen to me. It's small, little, I mean, it's not like big paint, but it's
Right,
like
right.
micro. You need like magnifying glass to paint these little colors. And then when you back up and see it, I'm telling you, do yourself a favor and look this up if you're a guy. Because you want to give this to your wife, your significant other, your girlfriend.
Have you bought this for me?
No.
Ooh. Mm.
But I'm planning on it. I am planning on it one day. But the reality
Picasso.
Pink Picasso. Yeah, he's setting the notes himself. Okay, here's the deal, though. It's called paint by numbers. You actually look at the picture and you can see like the flowers and the tulips and the leaves. You can see the outline of the picture. But it's not until you put the paint. Oh yeah, he's looking it up right
On the
now.
canvas.
I'm just telling you.
It's even
worth
more
the look.
fascinating.
Beautiful.
My mom
on
just
this.
painted something. It looked like Picasso.
You can put.
It was unbelievable.
You can send them a
Put this in
photo,
the show notes.
like of your
Yeah, watch
kids.
this. You could listen to this.
Really?
You can send like a photo, dogs, kids, family, whatever, and they will create a paint by number for your image.
Yes.
Okay. So next episode, I'll order some of these.
Yeah,
We'll
we'll-
do this while we talk about it.
While we talk about, we'll fill Jesus full.
Oh, okay.
No. Okay. So basically, you paint. So if you get the picture and you see the flowers and the leaves and the stems, it's kind of a sketch. It's an outline of the picture. It's not until you fill it with the paint that it actually comes into full perspective and it actually comes to life. It's high definition. It takes a black and white dull sketch and turns it into a high definition visual image.
Creates the full picture.
The full picture. Now watch this. You can kind of see its flowers and stems and leaves, but when you put the paint on, you see what the picture's supposed to be. Watch this. When Jesus says, I didn't come to abolish, nullify, but to fulfill, he's basically saying, I came to fill full. I came to give the full picture of what the law is like by living it out perfectly to the T before a holy God.
Wow.
Now, it also means another insight too.
What's it mean?
It also means to interpret correctly. Why is that important? I didn't come to do away with the law, to nullify it, but I came to interpret the law correctly. Now, how do I know that's the case? Because notice the next thing that Jesus does, okay? The next thing that Jesus does. Candy, pick it up in verse 21. So watch this, Matthew 5:21, and I want to show you this.
You have heard that it was said to our ancestors, do not murder, and whoever murders will be subject.
Stop. Go to verse 27. Watch this.
Okay.
Verse 27.
You have heard that it was said, do not commit
31.
adultery.
I'll just stop right there. I just wanted to get the first part. Go to verse 31.
It was also said, whoever divorces his wife.
Okay, 33.
Again, you have heard that it's said to our ancestors.
Okay, stop right there. What is he saying? You've heard that it was said.
I'm laughing because she keeps trying to read
that's good,
as fast
that's
as
good.
possible.
No,
before you
she's
cut her
trying
off.
to get it out, but that's not the point. I want you to stop. No, I want you to stop. When he says,
saying,
you have heard that
it
it was said,
Right.
what is he saying?
He's saying, you've heard this, but this
But let
is
me
what,
tell
Okay,
you.
where have you heard of that?
The oral law.
The written, well, yes, the written and the oral law,
Yeah.
right? The written and
What was
the
the
oral
technical term for the oral law?
law. That's a good question. I forgot that. The technical term for the oral law was the Mishnah.
The
Did
Mishnah.
you know that?
Yeah, well, we've
the
heard all about
Talmud, the Mishnah,
Yeah.
the Gemara, all of that makes up the Talmud. Actually, the Mishnah, the Talmud's all of them, but the Mishnah is the collection of the oral law written down. Now, they didn't actually write the Mishnah down until after the destruction of the temple because the Jews were dispersed all over the world. Before that, they were connected together in Jerusalem, Israel. After that, they were dispersed, the diaspora around the world. But that's called the Mishnah or the Talmud, which is the collection of the oral law.
Okay.
Which is pretty fascinating. But here's what Jesus is going to do. Jesus says, I'm not coming to get away from the law, do away. I actually am coming to interpret the law, and let me interpret it correctly. You have heard it said before, an eye for an eye, but a tooth for a tooth. But I say, anyone who is angry with his brother. You've heard it say, do not murder. Do not murder. But I tell you, anyone who's angry with his brother. You've heard it say, do not commit adultery. But I say, if anyone looks at a woman with lust, see what I'm saying?
Yeah, he raised the bar.
Yes, he raises the bar, and here's what he's doing. He's giving a correct interpretation of the law. Now, here's what's crazy. For the rest of Jesus' ministry, particularly in Matthew, what does he criticize? What is he attacked on?
Jesus?
Yes. His interpretation of the law. Why do your disciples not fast when everybody else is fasting? Why are your disciples working by rubbing grain on the Sabbath? Why are you healing somebody on the Sabbath? So what they're doing is they're asking him questions about his interpretation. And Jesus basically says, you guys have kept the letter of the law, but you've missed the spirit of the law. You missed the heart of the law. Now, we know a lot of people like this. We know a lot of people who can check boxes. We know a lot of people who show up at church. We know a lot of people who are active in certain areas of life groups and D groups, but they are far from God and their affection and their devotion. We know people like this, right? Do you know anybody like this?
I've been like this in seasons.
Sure.
We've all been like that, right? You go through you start checking boxes legalistically, right?
Sure.
So Jesus is going to show them this is the correct interpretation of the law, and that's what he's questioned on. Now, why is that important? This is why I believe Matthew was first. I believe Matthew was first because Matthew is one of the only gospels, at least in a robust way, who is constantly answering questions about the oral law, which the Jewish community would have had since they were the first to receive the message. When Paul comes along, Acts 15 and the Jerusalem Council happens. And Paul says, no, actually, there are some Gentiles down the road, guys, that are actually receiving the gospel and God's grace is to them. And then the ministry blows up with the Gentiles and the Jews are diminished. And now we have very little, obviously Messianic Jewish, but the comparison is so out of whack now. Here's the thing. Matthew's the first because he's addressing this fledgling movement that is particularly directed toward Jews, when Mark is written to the Romans, Luke is written to the Gentiles, and John is written to all the dispersion of believers. And so that's the case I have for Matthew. Now, could that be wrong, and could it be Luke? Now, there's a strong case. My friend Dr. David Allen wrote a book on Luke. He's a linguistics preaching professor at Southwestern Seminary, and he actually wrote a book where he professed or suggested Luke was first. Do you know why?
Because all the details, and then everybody else used his details to fill in.
Well, because he does this eyewitness account, and he's interviewing people, and he's writing a chronological order. So the end of the day is it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Okay, it doesn't really matter. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I believe Matthew is number one. Now, you're gonna see this as we get into Matthew next week, because what we're going to talk about.
We kind of got into it.
No, we got to get the
We
back.
dipped our toe.
We dipped our toe in the fulfill the law and the prophets.
Mm-hmm. We did.
Right? We did go there. You gave a little nugget.
You read
there.
the first part of several verses.
That's right.
That is a bonus. No, next week is what we're going to talk about, which is crucial. We're going to talk about the three themes of Matthew. You got to remember, these writers are writing thematically to prove a point. Right. Matthew has three themes, and again, all Jewish in nature, and I'm going to show you why I believe plays into the idea that I think he's writing a Hebrew first Bible, and he's also writing a Bible that is to the Jews first, which would have been the early movement. So we're going to talk about the three themes of Matthew, but we're also going to talk about how one of those themes connects Jesus to Moses.
Ooh. And
Matthew actually structures his gospel around the 5 books of Moses.
Okay, here we go. Candy, you have any last thoughts?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, hey. Season 3, y'all. We just kicked it off. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, share it with a friend anywhere you listen to this podcast. If you can leave a comment or a review, that helps us reach more people. And now that we're on YouTube, y'all, I expect to see you sharing this on Facebook and stuff. So we're excited to be here. Pastor Candy, thank y'all so much. And we'll see you on the next episode.